Yes, from the piney woods of Mississippi, Joseph Newman has indeed developed an invention whose time has come. An invention that would provide abundant and inexpensive energy to power our farms, factories, businesses, and homes.
For those who haven't heard by now, there is an inventor in Lucedale, Mississippi, who has a machine that he says will one day run every appliance in our homes, including the air conditioning and heating. And according to some experts, if the unit ever gets to the public, you will pay one time only for the unit. You will pay no utility bills after that. During this week, we've presented scientists and engineers who have tested the machine and not only agreed that the unit works, but that someday it will also power cars, planes, and ships. In short, they believe the invention of Joseph Newman could possibly change the world.
And Joseph Newman's work has been featured on national television and in hundreds of newspapers and magazines throughout the country.
What's the answer to the energy crisis? Suppose a fellow told you the answer was in a machine he has developed. Before you scoff, take a look with Bruce Hall.
In the backwoods of Mississippi, a mile down this dirt road, past the keep out and no trespassing signs, is the workshop of Joe Newman, a brilliant, self-educated inventor who says he has developed a machine that could solve the energy crisis.
Now back to Take Two on CNN.
What if someone invented a machine that would make the gasoline engine obsolete? What if someone invented a machine that produced more energy than it used? And that energy is cheap, non-polluting, and safe. That person would probably be hailed as the greatest scientist since Einstein, with a discovery as important as electricity and as revolutionary as the wheel. Joseph Wesley Newman claims to have invented just such a machine. He says that his energy machine could power every American home, farm, business, automobile, and appliance with electricity at a fraction of the present cost. More than 30 scientists and technicians have tested the energy machine, and they agree it works. Well, it's a fascinating story. First of all, if you can tell stupid people like me as sort of how this machine works.
Okay, Dave, it's basically is that you're not creating anything. You're simply utilizing energy that prior to this time hasn't been understood. It took us several thousand years to ever put a water wheel in moving water. And basically what I'm doing is utilizing the energy in the magnetic field that consists of matter in motion, exactly like a moving river does.
We are back. Well, would you welcome, please, Joseph Newman. Nice to meet you.
I appreciate you having me.
Do you think your machine, if it can be commercially made available, can, for example, a person would buy a 300 or 400 pound unit and all of a sudden would be able to produce all of the energy they need for their home? Is that certainly within the realm of possibility?
Exactly. I have absolutely no doubt about it. That such a device hooked to a home, a person will never have to pay for energy again. The device will be made small enough to put in an automobile, plane, spacecraft, you name it. This device...
Using the atoms from the magnetic field.
And what you're doing is that you're converting mass into energy on a 100% conversion process. That's one of the first prototypes, and that's a 700-pound magnetic rotor, and it's got about 8,000 pounds of wire around it. Now, it's gone down. That unit there weighs 135 pounds, and I showed that at the Hilton in New Orleans. There was approximately 2,500 people attended, 1,000 people outside, and another 1,500 standing to get in. And it would demonstrate something like 25 times more out than externally inputted into the system.
You get more wattage out of that than
what you'd put in. In fact, Railback Battery Company is working with me now trying to design a battery to hold up to this recharging effect of this system. Because not only will it run the device, it'll put more energy back into the battery pack than came out of it.
So you could, that's fascinating. Tell you what, we could stay here all night.
And now 31 people with scientific backgrounds have signed legal documents swearing to the machine's validity.
And Joe's gone beyond what you can read in textbooks. He's an original thinker. There are not many of those.
Newman motor can now be made ready for practical use in commercial and home energy needs in the very near future. If you doubt this strange story, you are not alone. One of the first to doubt was Dr. Roger Hastings, a PhD in physics from Minnesota. After conducting innumerable tests, Dr. Hastings no longer doubts. Are you not talking about a machine that would change the world?
It certainly would.
Do you know how crazy that's going to sound to the people watching?
Well, just about as crazy as it sounded to me the first time I heard it. But my point of view is just that I have made measurements, I have seen enough experiments that are just not explainable on the basis of our present understanding of, my present understanding of physics. It's something that would really change the world, and it's something that any conscientious person can't walk away from. When you've seen something that puts out more energy than it takes in, and you've taken some measurements that tell you that's true, if you have any conscience at all, you can't walk away from that.
Astronaut Captain Ronald Evans approved the theory and recommended it to NASA. Shortly thereafter, in 1979, Dr. Robert Smith, Chief of Space Environments at NASA, wrote, "Because of your theory, several laws of physics may need to be re-examined." And then Dr. E.L. Moraine, one of the men involved in the making of the atomic bomb, wrote, "Your project will lead to developments that would be beneficial to all mankind."
I think he's a genius. I think he's found something that's, in my way of thinking, is probably the most significant discovery in the history of man.
There's a lot of people who said Joe believes in perpetual motion, or you get something from nothing. I'm just an old country boy, but I'm a hard-nosed guy, and you got to prove something to me.
The proof, says Newman, is his machine itself and the meters measuring energy in and energy out. They show more coming out and have attracted a flock of engineers and other experts to his backwoods laboratory. Nearly all have come away convinced that the man is onto something that could change the way we live, a virtually limitless source of free, non-polluting energy.
It would be a portable, condensed source of energy that can be taken to anywhere in the world in a suitcase, or perhaps smaller, and no part of the world now would have to be without energy.
For the past 5 months, we've been reporting on an inventor in Mississippi who claims he has a machine that will literally answer all of our energy problems. That's a claim that would seem ridiculous if he didn't have a growing number of experts who agree. 8 slightly used pinlight batteries in series were placed on a motor that was doing virtually no work.
That's it.
The batteries died in 1 minute and 15 seconds. Those dead dry cell batteries that are not supposed to recharge were then linked to a portable model of Mr. Newman's invention. The batteries turned a 90-pound magnet for 1 hour and 15 minutes. Then, because of a lack of time on our part, we removed the batteries. We then reattached the batteries to the original motor. The motor ran 2 minutes and 28 seconds before the batteries died. That is twice as long as the first time on batteries that are not supposed to recharge. The magnet that used to rotate at about 30 revolutions per minute now spins at over 200 revolutions per minute. That means more energy and more accurate testing. Testing like that recently conducted by engineers from Wisconsin, Minnesota, California, and Louisiana. One representative of Rayovac Batteries watched the testing and then stated,
"It would appear that there's more energy coming out than the batteries are delivering."
I think it'll change the general way that most of atomic physics is viewed, and perhaps much, much more than that.
The Mississippi inventor who claims he has a device that will solve the world's energy problems came to New Orleans today. Many felt that the demonstration of his device would attract only a few. Those that believe that were wrong. For years, Joseph Newman has fought a lonely fight over a bizarre-looking energy device that he claims will change the world. Today, the machine looks a little different, and the fight continues, but he is no longer alone. This was the scene at the New Orleans Hilton Hotel today. Over 1,000 people crammed into a ballroom to hear Newman, and more than 1,000 more waiting outside. At the podium was the usual complement of scientists who have supported Newman for the past 2 years, but there are also some new faces. Actor Eddie Albert, who hopes to draw President Reagan's attention to Newman's fight, and Canadian businessmen who have plans for the Newman device.
We hope that in the near future we can make some arrangement with Mr. Newman to help this machine production in Canada to benefit the people up there.
Inventor Joe Newman of Lucedale, Mississippi claims that scaled up, his machine will replace all conventional fuel sources. Today,
this thing that he calls a gyroscopic particle in essence becomes the new atom. This prototype, from the testing we've recently done, can be scaled up with very little additional work to produce enough power to at least run as an auxiliary power plant in a home.
It's going to be the Industrial Revolution all over again, except greatly accelerated. Every aspect of science will be touched by the technology that I teach. It'll open many doors.
I go by what I hear the other scientists saying, and all they have is nothing but praise for it. I thought it was fantastic.
February 25th, 1986, inventor Joseph Wesley Newman appeared in symposium on the campus of Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge. A full house gathered to hear Mr. Newman discuss his theories and present documentation to the academic community. The following is a documentation of that historic event. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce to you this evening inventor Joseph Newman.
Thank you. Thank you. Sit down, Well, thank you all very much. Seems like a big crowd. Looks like some people here want to think a little bit. Pleased to see that. That's what I'm here for, is to stimulate everybody that's here.
My name is Bobby Mathern. I'm from Metairie. My background is physics. I work for Louisiana Power and Light, and I'd like to say that I'm representing myself here today. Well, I've been working with Mr. Newman now over the past 3 years, and I have two questions that constantly come up. So I'm going to ask them as if they were coming from the audience. The two questions are, why not before now? Why not? Why wasn't this invented before? We've been building machines, electromagnetic motors now for over 100 years. Why not before now? And the other question is, how big can it be built? So think about the second one while I answer the first. Why not before now? Well, 100 years ago, when Faraday and Maxwell got together, Faraday did the experiments, Maxwell did the theory. Einstein hadn't been invented yet. Think about that. They built the theory, the equations from which we've designed all the motors since then on the law of conservation of energy. It needs to be updated. It has to be the law of conservation of mass and energy. We're not creating energy out of nothing. We're creating it out of matter, out of mass. E equals mc squared. You've heard that? This man has tapped that and is now producing electricity directly out of matter. It's sort of like we've been systematically avoiding building motors that does what Mr. Newman's does, because of the sparking, because of the problems that it causes. It's sort of like we've been living on the side of this fastly moving river, and it's been sort of a nuisance, and we're continually building bridges over it. You know what that's like. And Mr. Newman said, why don't we put a paddle wheel into it and tap some of that energy of that magnetic field? And that's what he's done here, as you'll see when he operates it. Number two, how big can it be built? The more interesting question to me is, how small can it be built? Do you know how much electricity is radiated from all those power lines going around? If you can build it small enough, every appliance you would buy in the next 20 years would have its own source of energy inside of it. You don't get your house wired for electricity. You bring the appliances and they have their own power pack inside, based on Mr. Newman's theory. Think about that. Thank you.
According to conventional theory, it can't do what it's doing. Just sitting there continuously rotating a rotor requires more power than is going into the device.
There's three three forms of power that can come out of this device: mechanical power, electrical power, and then the power that's fed back into the batteries. So there's three separate outputs of power. And actually, we're only measuring one of these. So the actual power output of it is greater than what we've measured.
Before testing the machine and meeting the inventor, one WWL engineer said, in effect, the whole thing was preposterous. The other said, oh no, not another perpetual motion device. But when the tests were over, no one said preposterous, no one thought perpetual motion.
I'm absolutely fascinated. I have, of course, a certain amount of ambivalence, as most people do who have been grounded in conventional theory, in that it looks too good to be true, yet on the other hand, his theory makes a great deal of sense. It explains things in magnetic theory that were never satisfactorily explained to me by conventional theory. And if, in fact, his device does work, which I believe it does, I firmly believe we stand on the threshold of something absolutely unknown in the history of humanity.